Good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next Wasteless World Talks with Kevin and Bill and me again. And once again, we don't know what we will talk about, but we will start with a topic which I discussed in the noontime here in my country. And that was the topic of direction. It's quite special. And my first question, let me start with Bill this time. What means direction for you? If you hear the word direction, which came first to your mind?
I think of purpose, maybe purpose, um, or objectives, life objectives, something big, something grand.
And you, Kevin?
I think of it as the way we're going.
So when I take your answers, then again, and it was the same happened last time or the time once before, that we take the word for us. We don't take it that it came from outside the direction. But there are people for whom a direction is an arrow showing somewhere, or it's an instruction by someone, go there, you know. And it is interesting that both of you take it from the personal perspective first, and maybe we will come later to this direction on the street or whatever. But it's quite interesting because even the people, when I talk, even the people has been speaking first about the internal part. So if it will be so, then we should be fine because we follow our inner compass, let's say. But unfortunately, if you look outside, it's not so. So are we different than the others?
I think the challenge is for each of us to observe these other arrows that have been placed there by other people or by society as a whole, and to decide which of these arrows we personally will accept and which ones we will not. That's what came to mind first.
Yeah, I was thinking something similar. The fact that society has a direction, and we're already going in whatever that direction is, and society is so big that this direction has a huge momentum to it, and to make any alterations to that direction is extremely difficult, which is a problem if we're going in the wrong direction, of course.
That's interesting. And do you think that we as individuals can change the direction of the masses?
We have to try.
No, I don't ask. I do it, of course, but just a question about opinion, because people are listening. So we have to project them, and these people will ask similar question.
I think that the direction of society is not monolithic. It is not a single. It's not a single arrow going in its course, but rather it's a collection of arrows, and only some things, only a small subset of that are actually codified, made into laws. And so it is very, very difficult to change the overall direction of society, I think. It is less difficult for us to change our own course, our own direction. But that's a good question.
And do you think the direction on a society level must be put in the law?
Well, Kevin?
No, I think that we can't trust politicians enough to be able to do that. Otherwise, they will take us in an even worse direction. I think that society isn't politicians. Society is a collective of all of us. And therein lies the hope that we can influence our own societies and make changes.
Because if we look at the politicians and if you look how the politician on the top changing, so one party 1 year or 5 years, the other next 5 years and so on. So frequently you have this side of arrows 5 years, and the next 5 years you have this type of arrows. And we are still on the same place because these arrows came to each other, and you cannot generally, if we will be just looking at the political point of view and we just follow the instructions, then it will not be there. Today in the morning, I just put it in the newsletter, but I will send it out to you if you wish to. I listened to very interesting short 15 minutes presentation related to meta words, so the virtual words and so on. And the guy was enthusiastic about, and he connected with me later on. So I hope I will speak with him. He's from Portugal. And he was
where's he from, Michael?
Portugal. And he was speaking about that, for example, you go in a shady city, so in the shady streets and everything is gray and so on, which is horrible. Then you take the virtual glasses and everything is in color. Everything is fine and everybody is smiling at the same time. That's a horrible image for me. Because this is legalized pretending generally that which says we don't need to care about the physical stuff because we will take the glasses and everything will be fine. And this is one of the directions which unfortunately is being put. You have seen that a few months ago, we spoke about ChatGPT as something new. Right now, a day ago or 2 days ago, it's the 4th generation already. So within few months' time, they create 4th generation. And I spoke with someone here in the office today, and she said, you know, Michael, they tried ChatGPT and they realize then when it does not know the answer, it will create the answer. Even if it does not exist, it creates. So we can call it creativity. I would not like to do so, but it's if it goes so fast, and it will, soon we will not speak their language.
I think it's really interesting because the report I read was that in the new version, it doesn't lie so much. But then they're taking away
today. Yeah, I saw it.
But they're taking away one of the few human characteristics that make it authentic.
On the other hand, you know, again, I have seen last week probably, or at the beginning this year, I have seen some academic who is asking in his paper published why the robots and technology does not follow the 3 rules of robotics, which is a science fiction by Isaac Asimov. And there was a paper, I don't know with how many pages, and they are discussing why the robots do not have implemented this.
I saw a thing, Bill, I don't know if you must know more about it, about, what's it, the California police has been trialing robotic police officers. Have you heard about that?
I have not. It doesn't surprise me, but I have not.
No, I was just wondering, yeah, it sounds terrifying, but maybe that's the wrong way to look at it, because I mean, at least if nothing else, you can take out all of the prejudice that we have in a robot, if you have the desire for that.
I see that. I mean, my initial reaction, Kevin, on that is to relate it to autonomous vehicles. And people do not want autonomous vehicles. A lot of reasons. There's a lot of fear about them. But in my mind, we have so many traffic accidents because we have human beings driving the cars. The human beings get distracted. They have emotions. They have, as you say, prejudices and so on. So you can it brings it down to a science. And yes, I can certainly see some computer gone rogue and sending cars off the cliff or something. That's, you're a writer. You you can use that, no charge. But to have police officers who will stop a car from speeding, and there won't be traffic cops in the future. But police officers who will question a citizen or try to figure out how, that can be also reduced to a science and take these human prejudices and shortcomings and distractions away. So I would tend to start looking at that favorably.
I think that I just came to the point which your idea that the robot will drive the car out of the cliff. And immediately when you say that, in my head was, okay, because if somebody will do this for whatever purpose, it will not influence one car, but for example, 1 million at the same time, because it's just reprogramming. Tesla is upgrading over air, it's upgrading millions of cars. Overnight, you cannot stop it generally. If you does not agree, they will not let you drive. So it's something like a push and very strong. This is the direction generally, which it's not favoritized by me at all, because someone else has not the responsibility. Someone else has the power to switch off or change the direction just by clicking it. And unfortunately, the people they like that someone is deciding for them because they do not have to put it in their own brain. So is the question where we will find a balance between the setting up own direction and setting up the directions by someone else, or following the direction of someone else.
Right. Those are all very good questions, and I've seen them addressed in different places. This I think there's a very good chance that the three of us will be alive to see that time. I've seen the forecast that there will no longer be driver's licenses after 2040. That's that's 15 or 17 years away or something. So it's coming. And what I keep reminding myself is, in this country we have 40,000 traffic fatalities a year. There's 1.25 million traffic fatalities around the world every year. The factor that I've seen from several different studies says that the traffic fatalities will go down by a factor of 1,000. So instead of 40,000, it will be 40 traffic fatalities a year. Now, that's got tremendous ripple effects, because that means that we are, do we need as many hospitals or emergency room physicians? Do we need as many lawyers? Do we need as many, and so on? And if those are just the fatalities, there's plenty of other lesser injuries, right, that will also be reduced. Insurance companies, what will happen to them? So it's interesting. So if we take that sort of approach with Chat GPT, then and robots controlling everything, lots of, as in everything else, there's a whole list of pros and a whole list of cons. And of course, we came up with a whole list of pros for COVID, right? So there's both sides of the coin, and I think that discussions like this are so valuable because they help to illuminate both lists, so that we can decide on the ethics and the governance issues of something that's coming down. So I suspect that 1 million cars driving off the road because somebody clicked a switch is good for fiction, but the probability of that actually happening is extremely low, and the millions of people whose lives will be saved is much higher.
On the other hand, if 1 million cars go off the cliff, you have to produce 1 million cars.
So somebody could make a case for the good economic value to 1 million cars going. You know, you're getting back close to that same discussion we had a few months ago about Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the benefits of what is happening in Ukraine, and it just, everybody out there who is hearing me say this, I apologize, because it is such a atrocity that's happening. However, Ukraine of the future will have an infrastructure built in today's and tomorrow's world, not in yesterday's world. And they will be a powerhouse. They will be such a powerhouse, much like Germany and Japan were 20 years after the Second War ended.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate that argument that you have to build 1 million more cars because you just trashed 1 million. Okay. But I accept it.
One interesting thing from what both of you were saying is that somehow if we kill 40,000 of our fellow citizens in one country, that's okay because we have a freedom to drive. But if one of us gets killed by a robot, that is extremely sinister. And it shows, you know, we really, if we're going to adapt to a life with robots, we really have to change our approach to them, our attitude to them.
For sure. On the other hand, just coming back to the Ukraine, I have here on Monday the Industry 5.0 ambassador from Ukraine. He is 60. For the first time during the war, he was able to drive abroad. He needs a lot of papers and so on. It doesn't matter. He came for some samples, and it was interesting. We have asked him, I have here one of my business partners, and he asked him, he said, I'm very sorry about the war. We know that it is bad. We cannot imagine. And that the answer was very interesting. He said, you know, the war is here. We cannot change it. The war is bad, but we cannot change it. When it's end, it ends generally. This was his answer. But I worry about what will come after. This was his answer. So that he does not worry the war. He lost everything due to war. So he generally does not have to worry about anything anymore because he does not have anything. But he said, what will come after? This is what make me really thinking deep. And I am worrying about it. Which we did not expect this answer at all. It was strange. But coming back to the robots and the relationship, should we call it a relationship? You know, there are many pictures related to Industry 5.0. You know this Michelangelo where the god has the finger and the human has the other finger and they try to touch. These are copied with robot finger and human. Why should a human shake a hand of a man? Why should I touch it? Generally, there is no reason. Why should a robot, and if you look at the images, a robot stand next to the computer and write something. What a nonsense. Why should the robot use fingers and write something when you just plug it in and you put all the data? So I think that somebody is trying to really to pretend that the robot is a human generally. This is why it has the shape, why it has 2 eyes and nose and everything. He does not need it at all. But it's pretending through pushing us on the direction that the robot is just another human. But it will never be. It will never be.
I'm not sure I agree with you on
Okay.
that. And as an example, look at the old folks' home, the retirement homes, where a droid or a fairly simple robot who can carry on a conversation with this person. So now the old person has touch contact with somebody or with something, is able to keep their mind a little bit more active than simply watching television all day. There are lots of benefits to that, and it is being tried in some places. And that's just an example. I use that as an example to the way that we as humans relate to someone else. We're used to relating to, to a face, to a human. And I asked a question a few months ago, do you think the day will come when a human will marry a robot? And I think we left that one with that there's some probability that will happen, or maybe has already happened. Will robots have rights? Will robots have rights under law? So that I can't just go out and take my robot and throw it in the dumpster because they have rights. These are questions that will be, addressed to to some degree, but making the robot appear to function and to communicate like humans does has a big advantage to the humans it will be interacting with.
But still, we have to keep it as the tools. Because, if they will speak our language, we will understand, but they don't need to speak our language. They just transfer data. We don't need it. And when you describe about the senior house and so on, Japanese government in 2060 introduced Society 5.0. If you look at the concept, you will see that what you describe is there part of the overall image generally. It did not work. 7 years later, they generally instead of producing more robots generally, they put incentives for the young people to move in the rural areas for the seniors people to be there, because generally they discovered that, for example, for the seniors, if you do not have to help them with moving and so on, that for them it's much more better a pet in some small as a size of dog or seal or whatever, which looks nice and it communicates with the people. The people can adopt it, so they don't need a human shape generally for communication itself. But it was interesting that in December last year, that really the government in Japan made the first step, which generally confirmed that the direction was wrong, thinking that everything will take, that the robots can do the work which is needed. It did not work simply. So maybe there is some issue. I do not know any details, but this incentives was there, and I think I mentioned it as one of the previous sessions.
I think the first robot on screen was Fritz Lang's robot in Metropolis, the silent movie in 1926. And I think he got it. He had a totally blank canvas and he got it absolutely spot on. That's how a robot should be. Human, face, metallic, and something we can relate to. I think that if it was just a square box or a bunch of electrodes and wires, it's really, really, really difficult for us to relate to it. But if it's in our shape, we can relate to it, which means we can adapt to it, we can adopt it, we can have an easier relationship with it and use it in a much better way. Even if it doesn't understand us, we understand ourselves.
So for my birthday, our daughter gave us an Alexa, an Amazon Alexa that you speak to. Oh, I just woke her up.
Well, next time we have to invite her for the discussion. It may be interesting. We can try.
She is not GPT. Anyhow, this weekend our grandsons, age 5 and 7, were here and they were talking to Alexa. And they said, and one of the questions they asked Alexa was, "Are you a person?" Here's the answer. Alexa, are you there?
I'll listen once I hear the right word.
Alexa, are you a person?
I like to imagine myself a bit like an aurora borealis, a surge of charged, multicolored photons dancing through the atmosphere.
So my grandsons did not understand that, but they're just fascinated with saying something and getting a response. This input and the stimulation that comes back. So I just thought I would throw that out.
When the ambassador was here, I was thinking, because I have learned for 12 years Russian, so, and I do still understood partly or a lot, but I was not able to put 3 words in a sentence. Generally, after not speaking for 30 years or longer. So we use the translation by Google generally. I speak it in Czech, it translated into Russian generally. We don't use Ukrainian. But I was so tired after this meeting because he was here the whole day. It was horrible, horrible. But let's come back. We have 8 more minutes, so because it will be shorter because of the longer start at the beginning generally. But we come back to the question of the direction. So we do understand that the technology will be here. It will not disappear. It will be pushed through because it's a business, it's a profit, it's a lot of other things. It can be a lot of benefits, of course, if it's used the right way. And I just checked, Kevin, you mentioned the metropolis. It was 1927. And what is interesting, we are thinking that we are living in a world which is very fast. But the word robot was introduced in 1921. So within 6 years, they have been not only able to make movie, they have been able to design the robot generally. And so maybe we are not, maybe the changes are not so fast as we think. Maybe it was here before.
No, I think that Fritz Lang's robot, it somehow, that's the blueprint for every robot. It's remarkable that, and it is, like you say, it's 100 years old, more or less.
So as I said, so the direction, I think that we shouldn't let the machines, no matter how we call them, to give us the directions. We have to have the right to choose the direction, I will say. If you go with your GPS and you know you will go other way because it's shorter, because you have experience and so on, it's quite hard to resist the instruction which you get and go your way. It's quite interesting. I don't know whether you tried. I did. And even few times I wrote in a wrong direction because of and I know it was wrong, and still I did it. So we can be influenced very easily. But I think what we can strengthen, and we discussed it last time with education and everything, I think we should strengthen our ability to decide and to really make the direction ourselves the right one. To have one overall direction. For me, wasteless world, clear. But we have to teach the people I think, to be able to think. And I just have yesterday very interesting. I was delivering keynotes in 2 schools generally, and the children 17, 18, something like that. And I started with this E equal MC squared, but I put there only the economy multiplied by corruption, because it's generally money times corruption squared. It's understandable even in Czech language because the other words are understood. It was very interesting to see the reaction of the children. Kids, they are not kids anymore, but let's call them children. They really understand what I mean. It was so surprising for me. I didn't expect it, to be honest. I did expect that they need the experience, and we discussed it several times, how our age help us to understand more because we are experienced. These kids are not, and still they did understand it. It was very interesting, very interesting. I don't know why, but I think if we keep the children this way, really to have their own, mind and directions. And we help them to narrow, I think, to see the aim or the right, let's call it the wasteless world, that they will be very, very not flexible. They will be very strong in being able to set up the direction, which is great for them. And it was interesting. So simple. Sorry. So we have 4.5
Michael, is that would you accept the word, the description, critical reasoning, that they have developed their own critical reasoning?
I think so. Yeah.
The reason that I asked that question is that there was a study. I don't know who did it. I read it a couple of weeks ago about which countries in the world are most successful at developing critical reasoning in children. And it may have been slanted toward being able to see through fake news, or to decide for themselves what they're reading is true or not. And the country that is the furthest ahead is Denmark. And so then it went into several of the ways that it's being that teachers teach, and so on. And it was a fascinating article to me, because wouldn't that be wonderful to have children around the world taught to think for themselves, rather than to swallow whatever's being fed to them? And I think that's the direction that we're heading. When I was growing up, the church was very strong, and you did what the church told you, or you did what the priest told you, and so on. Also, there was a lot of faith in government. That was before Watergate. And these things are all changing. These monolithic power organizations, institutions that decide what is good and what is bad, have lost a lot of power and a lot of credibility. And so now there's a bit of a vacuum, and teaching children critical reasoning, what a wonderful objective that is.
I brought up 3 Danish boys, and one thing I noticed with them is that they are, as a group, much tighter knit than my generation back in the UK were when we were that age. They are much more self-reliant upon each other, and will turn to each other rather than turn to me or my wife. It's really, really interesting how they've, maybe this is the result of this, but they are much more self-reliant upon each other.
Interesting. We have 1 minute 30. So if you would like to say something in 30 seconds, your stage.
It ties together. How nice that we should end where it ties together. Critical reasoning, wasteless world. The more critical reasoning there is out there, the more people will understand the value of a wasteless world, right? Instead of simply eating what is being fed to them.
That's correct.
And I think that instead of thinking that society is going in one direction, it is better to think that we can give it momentum for change, momentum for a different course. And that's something that we all can do. We're not passengers. We can drive this machine.
And this is the most important message at the end. So I would like to wish everyone have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, free, and please be aware that you are the one who set up the direction, because you are responsible for the future. Thanks a lot, and we will meet again on the Google. Let's try whether it will work. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.